I think most people's entryway into the art world is to focus on particular pieces of art that they like and the artists. And obviously that's very key to the nature of the art world. It is about celebration of these beautiful products of imagination. Where are our tastemakers? Grounded in our intellectual thought, much more holistic in thinking.
What do artists misunderstand about building sustainable careers?
I don't think they think about structure enough. What systems are you putting in place to ensure that your career is sustainable?
Hi, Lisa.
Hey.
How are you? So, we're going to go straight into it.
Okay.
You've spoken about art not just as an expression, but as something that's tied to systems, power, and value. Do you think most people misunderstand what the art world actually is?
I think most people's entryway into the art world is to focus on particular pieces of art that they like and the artists. And obviously that's very key to the nature of the art world. It is about celebration of these beautiful products of imagination. But what I think people think less about is the systems that enable that art to exist, for it to be displayed, and how that art is valued. And so there would be no art world without those determining factors. The art world, from my perspective, is a system. I think in a very systems-oriented way.
Do you think the art world is still focused on aesthetics over real impact?
It's very easy to be blinded by the hype and trends that influence, people's perception of a particular artist's superior skills based on what is in that work, the way that work looks. For example, I take a very well-known, ubiquitous artist, Basquiat, right?
Very well known and popular.
Very well known, very popular. People talk about so much the aesthetics of his work, how distinct that is, but they don't always consider how his work came to be, who he was as a human being, what enabled him to be seen, engaged with, and then how his work started to gain value and how it has now achieved this global renown and impact. And I think that's because they don't think about the fact that aesthetics, the actual product of the art, the kind of meaning within the art from a visual perspective is not a neutral territory. It is shaped. It's shaped culturally, it's shaped politically, and it's shaped economically. So it's not so much that I think people think about aesthetics without considering impact, but I think they just think about aesthetics in a very simple, one-dimensional way.
Why is that? Why do you think they think in that way? And is that the new artists of today or artists of the past, or is there a different type of thinking from different generations?
You have to think about the function that art serves, and I think it depends on your perspectives. When you say they, who are you talking about?
I'm talking probably younger artists, emerging artists who've probably seen like the impact it has on social media, and then they're drawn towards it. Okay, this is what I need to do, rather than the deepness of what Basquiat is. Like my daughter, she's has this book called, it's like this little storybook. I forgot the author, but it's teaching her about Basquiat's story, but in a unique way. Why he had the accident, the anatomy book that he got from his mother, and how that evolved his art. But they told it in such a kiddish form. She understands it now. Do you feel as though that's missing from emerging artists who think about aesthetics first when it comes to like socials?
So for an emerging artist, thinking about wanting to make their work impactful, but focusing on aesthetics, Yeah, that is the wrong way to think about your work. It's interesting because there's different ways to look at it. I mean, I am not one to want to constrain the creative imagination that leads to the development of, your own aesthetics. That's important. But you should never be chasing a particular aesthetic. You should be chasing your own truth. You should be chasing your own truth, and that, an appreciation of that, I think, is what's going to deliver you, your own distinct and grounded and informed aesthetical perspective, and that's what's going to deliver you authentic impact.
You entered the art world in a non-traditional way. Your background was human rights and international relations. What drew you to the art space?
Well, my background intellectually, I did my first degree in international relations, and I've got a master's in human rights. And no, I didn't even think about studying arts, at university. But I was always inspired by arts. Arts has always been the domain that fuels me, inspires me, educates me. I'm that person who grew up, cutting out images from magazines, putting them on my walls, daydreaming, wanting to know more about the lives of the artists that I was drawn to. And so it wasn't that far away from me. But what, I guess, led me to kind of unite my passion for social justice and questions of how power is structured in the world to the arts was learning about history, really, that the history of people, some of my heroes from the Caribbean arts movement in the United Kingdom, like John La Rose, this Trinidadian visionary, activist, publisher, bookshop owner, who made a space for a deeper appreciation of the unique creative perspectives of people from the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. And me tying those creative outputs, books, the art that the Caribbean art movement produced, to questions around empowerment, questions around identity, questions around justice. And so throughout my career now, I've always seen those two domains as kind of interdependent. I see arts as a way for us to understand each other better, to empower ourselves, and to pursue justice. Mm-hmm. So that kind of is what led me conceptually to the arts. And then, learning about the Black arts movement in the 1980s, then, seeing artists develop around me, Chris Afili, and then generations ongoing. Yeah, that's what's really led me.
So you took a big dive. Was that a difficult change from what you were doing to what it is now? Because art is a interesting pool to dive into, because it's either you're going one way or you're just making up some stuff along as you go.
The easiest way for me to explain it is that I came in through the door of culture. If you think of culture as this platform for thinking about ideas and values, that obviously includes the way we express ourselves visually through fashion or design, but also art. Coming in through it from that lens, enables me to connect the dots between politics and art. Yeah. I'll give you an example. One of the first institutions that, I became really interested in was Innova. Innova was chaired by Stuart Hall. Stuart Hall is one of the most brilliant cultural thinkers of our time. And I studied him and found a home in his kind of perspectives at university. So coming in through that lens, the cultural lens, is what's doesn't feel like it was a jump for me.
Yeah.
Because it's what introduced me to particular ways of seeing art, but then obviously going into the relationship with the artist themselves.
And you mentioned like culture as infrastructure as well. You know, what does that actually mean in terms of practice, in terms of the culture as infrastructure?
So for me, I get a bit antsy when people go, oh, that's just culture, and diminish it as like a domain that's not that as important as economics or politics or law. I see culture as, you know, it is the things that tie us together. It's our values. So, but it's the values that inform how we do things, how we structure our lives.
Yeah.
So essentially, when I say culture is infrastructure, I'm elevating a regard for culture as more than just decorative, you know.
Yeah.
Thinking of it more as foundational to the way we understand ourselves and how we organise our lives.
You've mentioned curatorial repair. What does that look like and why is it important right now?
Yeah, curatorial repair, I think, well, let me just say what it means. It's pointing to the fact that the way that art is collected, interpreted and presented is never neutral, you know. There are histories and values that inform the way all of those things are done. And it's particularly important to consider that with regards to art that has been created by people whose histories have often been misrepresented, overlooked. So curatorial repair for me is about putting the care really back into the way in which art is tended to, the artist and the art product is tended to understand and be responsible for the cultural memory that's informing that work, and not to dismiss it. And I think to appreciate the work in that more holistic perspective is reparative in a world that dismisses certain knowledges, certain perspectives, certain languages, certain ways of understanding. So that's what I mean by curatorial repair. It is a very conscious approach to being driven by care and responsibility and an attention to cultural memory within work.
Who do you think is responsible for this kind of repair?
We all are. Some may shoulder the burden more than others. It's also an opportunity, but any institution should be thinking about representing the arts that is under their stewardship in a way that is caring and fully responsible with regards to appreciating the multidimensional aspects of that work. To do the job fully.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's about making the work whole.
Yeah, agreed.
But, you know, as I really reflect upon this, I'm thinking I should just make it clear, you know, who we all are, just so it's, you know, for the listeners, viewers. It's us in community, sharing our stories and standing for a certain quality of display or interpretation, let's say, for works. So thinkers, curators, writers, also collectors. Collectors have a big role to play in ensuring that these works are whole in the way that they approach their relationship to the artists and to, you know, their real connection to the artwork. And then, of course, institutions.
Do you think institutions are doing their thing?
Generally,
Yeah.
Piecemeal. It's very piecemeal. You know, there's levels to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing about having a beautifully curated show that does that job, and then, you know, the curator or the curatorial team don't feel safe to approach all subjects in that way, or all potential proposals in that way. You know, there's no point having care embedded into the way you present art if it's not embedded into the way that you do the work of stewarding, promoting, enabling people to access art.
I know what frustrates me about the art space and how it operates. What frustrates you about the art world and how it operates?
Okay, so what frustrates me, there's a few things that frustrate me.
We've had conversations.
Yeah, we've had many conversations about this. I'll start with exclusivity. Now, the art that exists within galleries that are public is there for everybody to experience. And I would love it if everybody felt confident and welcomed to properly experience that. There are many institutions that are now really focusing their efforts to do a better job to do that, but there's a long way to go. Mm-hmm. It's a long way to go to ensure that everybody gets to benefit from the beauty and the inspiration and the healing that can come from engaging with powerful art. The second thing that really frustrates me is like the misalignment, you know, the lack of translation of cultural value into economic value, particularly when it comes to certain aspects of, you know, African diaspora, black art, whatever you want to call it, art produced by people from the African diaspora of African history. It's not straightforward, and that's because there's many mediators to value. And it isn't always a fair playing field, let's put it that way. And the third thing I will say is the fragmentation of effort.
Don't I know it?
Right? We're so much stronger together.
Yeah.
And everybody's responsible for, you know, if you say it, you have to be about it.
Yeah.
But I would love to see a much more coordinated effort between those who share values. Let's not be super idealistic. I'm just saying with those people who share the ideals and want to move things in a certain direction, that we could be coordinated and support each other and know that, you know, if we're working towards the same goal, we can all benefit from it.
Yeah. To that last point, because we've spoken about how does everybody get together because we're all on a part of that mission, because one, I want to encourage more black art collectors because I feel as though that system is missing in terms of how do we get there. Do you think there's a reason why everybody has not connected?
Oh, yeah.
I have my
There's many
hints of, you know, the percentage of black people and the opportunities that are out there is small. You know what I mean? But sometimes I think, why are we going for the smaller pies when we can build something of our own?
I mean, this is a very big question. I say big because there's so many different levels to
loads
it.
Of layers.
You can look at the social history of collaboration, and you can look at it from a generational perspective. You can look at it from a political perspective, and then you can look at it in terms of, you know, the practicalities of everyday life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the easiest way to look at it because, you know, people can feel pretty nervous about how to enter into this world and do it in a way that has impact, especially when if you're coming from it, you know, without huge wealth.
Yeah.
You want the little money, the significant little money that you have to have impact in whichever way you value that impact. So that can make people very cautious and wary about dipping their toes in and then knowing who to trust for guidance.
Big time.
And this is where we come in. because we are passionate about guiding those people who have an interest in developing their knowledge, their confidence, their own clear priorities about who they want to collect, the kind of sense of, impact they want that to have in their life, in their community. And I don't think everybody easily knows that there are people like you and I here to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it is distinct and powerful to know that there are people from the African diaspora who, I personally come from a working class background, but I consider myself an expert in this field and I'm very much invested in sharing that knowledge and empowering the community at large, which empowers society at large. So, yeah, we need to raise our hand more.
Yeah.
And be strategic about how we get the message across, which is why we're having this conversation.
Yes, that's why we're here. I definitely think it's important, from, producing the Substack and pushing that out there. We're seeing more and more people ask those questions. I wanted to be a part of things like this as well.
Good.
Ecosystems, I know that's something we've touched on privately as well. What does a healthy ecosystem look like for an artist today?
A healthy ecosystem looks like alignment. Between, like I said, the value of the culture and how that's represented financially. But it looks like, that value being perceived, say an artist producing work, it has something special to it, and that value is identified and recognised early, but then there's systems in place to ensure that value is nurtured and sustained, and that it's able to have then its full impact. I think if we have a system that enables that, it's healthy. Whereby it's enabling, effort and expertise, brilliance to translate into value, but then there are people, collectors, thinkers, writers, curators, able to nurture that, and then institutions willing to partner equitably to protect that value for the long term. That's what I think a healthy ecosystem would look like. All the different constituent stakeholders of the ecosystem working together coherently, without there being these voids or these kind of black holes.
Yeah. Why do you think there's these type of black holes currently right now?
Not everyone's down for the equitable future. That's not what motivates everybody. That's fine. It's a part of reality. But another element, and I think that brings us back again to the purpose of this podcast, is the education.
Yeah.
That information isn't widely broadcast. People don't find it that easy to access. And if that were to change, that could start to close the gap, close the hole, so to speak. And I think, we need to be a bit more strategic about how we discern and convey value. We know this work is amazing. Other people know it, but it gets written off by one person over here.
Yeah. That I could do that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are our tastemakers? Grounded in our intellectual thought, much more holistic in thinking. That's another reason why the whole, these black holes exist, because that part of the ecosystem that frames and validates, we don't have much power over that at the moment. There aren't as many. No, it's not many about voices, because Substack is
it's
moving.
Going,
but how do we consolidate these tools of validation to ensure that people, can find confidence in that.
Yeah, no, agreed. What do artists misunderstand about building sustainable careers?
I don't think they think about structure enough. What systems are you putting in place to ensure that your career is sustainable? It's not enough. Talent is not enough.
Yeah. Stop doing that work.
Quotes.
Yeah.
Unquote. You need to think about the relationships. You need to think about the framing of your work. You need to think about the positioning of your work. Same thing, more or less. Who's supporting you? What are your goals? How are you going to measure success? Yeah.
To those who are probably thinking there's gatekeepers in there and they won't allow me to, shine free, do you feel as though, how do they get past that?
Gatekeepers.
In your opinion. I have my thoughts where I always say to them, as much as you're knocking on the front door of the house, if they're not opening it, build in front of the house. Eventually they'll open the door and say, like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah, do you? I agree with that. And also, there's always more than one. So, are the gatekeepers of the doors closed to you? That's never... Well, that could happen, to be fair.
Yeah, I always think it's the game or whatever game you play. Everything's a game, but it's how you're playing that game, for instance. You know what I mean? Do you want to make this person the boss of your game?
No, you never
Or you just be like, I'm going to focus on my own path.
you have to be really clear.
Exactly.
In your own value and what you're doing. And there are different ways to go about that. So I think thinking about the game differently is really key. And also, this is not an easy path.
Yeah.
This truth has to be shared. It comes with a lot of doubt, uncertainty, dark nights of the soul. But that's all to test your resolve and to refine your vision. Keep on going. If you really believe in your work, you will find a way through.
So you're building your independent consultancy through thought leadership. What are you working on towards the long term of this?
Well, I call myself a cultural strategist. That's because I like advising artists, collectors, and institutions on how we can build this ecosystem of a more sustainable and equitable art world. That's what my consultancy is. And the thought leadership is a means to realise that, really. It's about getting the word out there about culture as infrastructure, about the need for healthy ecosystems, and really interesting examples of how that's working, different institutional examples, connecting with other thought leaders who share this perspective. But what my long-term vision is obviously to work to that future and establish a platform that, does what I'm talking about. And that's Black British Art. In 2016, I think it was actually 2015 when I loaded up that name on Instagram. I did that because I wanted to fill a gap that I felt was there in the social media landscape. And back then, no one had used the hashtag Black British Art, if you believe it or not. Everything's proliferated since then, which is fantastic. And it's such a charged territory in the arts landscape, Black British art. What does it mean? What is it, historically, politically, whatnot? But I'm Black, and I'm in the UK. My nationality, I am British. And I think it just starts a really important conversation that if we don't have, it just dismisses a lot of potential value that could be added to society. So and putting my money where my mouth is, and for the future it looks like establishing that as a business.
Yeah.
So that's one element of that. And then the other is, continuing on as an independent consultant, doing my thing, working with the artists, institutions and collectors, supporting them on their journey to translating that value from culture in different ways.
Yeah. And is that mainly going to be with like artists and curators? How do you see that of helping them navigate through the space?
Mainly collectors. And my focus is on collectors, to be honest.
Okay.
Collectors, in terms of my consultancy, I still curate because I love the conversations that happen through artists. So when I'm thinking about curation, it's obviously in conversation with artists, but you can't be talking to collectors without a relationship with artists. So those two go hand in hand. And then institutions to see if we can, have an impact on the way that power is structured.
Is the art world built for artists to succeed?
This is going. Are you giving me this left field question at the 9th hour? This is so loaded, Ade.
I know, but
okay. Is the art world made for artists to succeed?
Yeah.
Not all artists.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it depends on what an artist's idea of success is. Do you want to qualify what you mean by succeed?
Notoriety, impact. Obviously, there's the monetary element to it that people want and deem it as success. But I think notoriety is probably top, right next to money.
The old art world is certainly not built for all artists to experience or achieve notoriety. But I'm not sure that's even the purpose of the art world either.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a simple answer. I perceive success for an artist as something they determine on their own terms. So, is their art respected? Is their art understood? Does it have a life in the real world? People get to engage with it and be inspired by it. And then is it protected for posterity? If you have those things, as well as, due recompense for the effort and the value of your work, then I think you're a successful artist.
Yeah.
There are levels to it, of course. But that's where I'd start with thinking about success.
Can culture exist without economics?
Can it exist? Of course. I mean, culture pre-exists economics. So I don't know what you mean specifically by economics. Do you mean the market for
I mean, some people say
art?
like
Outside of the art market?
Yeah, some people are like, I'm just doing it for art and just focusing on the culture of it all, and they don't think about sales. They feel as though that they want to separate it from there, and that's controlled by the people who deal with all those bits. They want to be in it without touching the economic part of the art space.
Oh, I see. So can you really appreciate culture without understanding the economics of it? Or so I think about the different levels that culture operates on, from, in the home, but you're talking about the market specifically.
Yeah.
So, no, if you're talking about culture as a cultural products, art as a cultural product, can you think of that outside of economics? No. You have to understand how it fits within the value system set by the market. Yeah, 100%. And if you want to enter the art market, then you better get an understanding of how the economics of the art market operates.
So stepping away from your role at Black Cultural Archives, was that a major turning point, and what did that moment represent for you?
Stepping away from Black Cultural Archives was a major shift for me in my career. It had been the best and most challenging job I've had to date. And yet the opportunity, beyond being responsible for such an important institutional legacy, is to think about, the limitations as well as the possibilities of working beyond that context. And so it's given me the space to really think more independently about my journey to date, what I've learned about how culture operates, what still needs to be done, and how best to go about that. And so that's really informed where I've come to today in thinking about ecosystems, culture as infrastructure, and the hopes and plans I have for Black British art, as well as my own curatorial practice. I want to build an ecosystem.
Yeah. And
that would not have been possible working with the weight of that institution.
How would you describe what Black British art is to you?
I think about Black British art as a fertile, diverse, potent, visionary, brilliant terrain of creative and cultural practice by people who have African ancestry living in the United Kingdom. I think about it as just a space, not a thing, because you can't say what that thing is.
Yeah.
It's not about flattening it down into identity. It's about expansiveness of possibility represented by the practices of all these people, these individuals who are committed to the exploration of the imagination through their creative output. And it's just about recognizing just how rich that space is. Challenging, contradictory, fragmented, whatever you want to call it, but that this space deserves recognition. It deserves interrogation, and it has value. It has supreme value.
Yeah.
Globally.
What do you think is currently missing for creators to try and grow?
It's missing frameworks, access to frameworks for them to understand how to navigate and then organise this pursuit, the pursuit of a creative practice. Let's think about it in terms of legal, economic, marketing, relationship management, fundraising. So many elements to it, to the framework. And I don't know whether I think the majority of artists, especially who go through institutions, come out of them without solid frameworks that they're confident in to help them navigate the world they're seeking success within.
Are institutions still relevant in that, or are they slowly becoming outdated?
I don't think the cultural institutions we have are built to help artists in that way at all. They're not structured in that way, no. It would be great for them to open up and do that more sincerely. By sincerely, I mean, most major cultural institutions have learning and development teams. They have curatorial teams who will reach out and propose opportunities to different artists. But in those engagements, are they equitable? Are they empowering? Do the artists come away feeling, right, now I've got tools that I can use to build upon? I don't think it's structured in that way. And I, to my knowledge of what I've seen and experienced from art institutions, I don't think many of their courses are organised in that way either.
Cool. That's that.
Okay.
Awesome.